there is so much catharsis. And whenever you watch a movie that hits you in an emotional place that you didn't know that you needed, whenever you kind of stumble into a movie and you're like, oh, it's this type of movie. And I truly am living that right now. My name is DeVaughn Taylor. I am a podcaster, director. I'm out here in Los Angeles, California, but I'm from St. Louis originally. Yeah. Specter Cinema Club, that's my baby. I started in 2020, formerly known as Blade Blunt Cinema Club. It's a horror movie podcast where we take a look at the subgenres. What's always interested me about horror is there's no rules. I enjoy seeing a movie and being like, what can I bring into the horror genre? I like to think of it as reverse gatekeeping. I like to make stretches for movies that really aren't horror movies, but if you think about it this way, it could be. For the show, we pick a monthly theme, then we break down the subgenres underneath it. The theme isn't always a subgenre for the month. Sometimes it's the director, sometimes it's a franchise. We're breaking down Scream, that's a slasher. It's also metal horror. It's also horror comedy. It's also high school drama. We kind of try to break down the pieces that way. I just want people to open yourself up to other possibilities. Yeah, you know a movie as one thing. I'm a theories guy. I'm a concept person. I read things through my interpretation as much as possible. Yeah, I gotta shout out my boy Garrett, because part of the reason we work out so well is our tastes, like, they align just right amount, but then we also differ quite differently on how we kind of watch movies. I'm a little bit more free-spirited, I suppose. I kind of come in with my own kind of stuff, and he's kind of a little bit more analytical than I am. So we kind of blend together in that way. We take a movie that fits in our monthly theme. We kind of give a 60-second synopsis of it. We go through a smidge of the background, but we're not like a movie scene by scene recap. We do kind of let the conversation go where it goes, but we do start off by like talking about what subgenres are most important in the movie, and then that's kind of what takes the conversation in different directions. We finish off the show with a little segment we call Movie Math. We make an equation of movies to kind of describe what movie we just saw, whether it be certain influences, tone. Try to make like a little web by the end of the episode where this movie sits in its specific subgenre. You can compare horror movies, but like a lot of times you can't. You can't compare a slasher to an aquatic horror movie. They're just different. For Aqua Slash, the killer water slide, yes, that is where those two meet. The Saltburn article I did for Dread Central, it's like, yeah, this is a horny erotic thriller, but it's also kind of a haunted house movie, but there's no ghosts. How does that work? Writing for Horror Press, I participate in their Pride Month, and writing about The Covenant, a movie that nobody talks about, but is also like one of the queerest horror movies I've ever seen, even though it was trying so hard not to be, Over time, podcasting has just been my preferred medium. I'm a rotating panelist on the Pod and Pendulum podcast, where we break down franchises and we do them like one by one. And then I just do lots of guest spots as well. Like I just really love podcasting. I'd say between my show, Pod and Pendulum, and guest spots, I've probably done at least 450 to 500 podcast episodes over the years, somewhere in there. So that is more my preferred medium versus writing. Versus now writing, I'm trying to focus on getting some screenplays done and then eventually getting some actual movies made. I actually have a new podcast called Tainted Love podcast, focusing specifically on erotic, sexual horror movies and relationships and love, paired up with Zoë Rose Smith from Ghouls Magazine. We do that show together bi-weekly. I am a feeling person whenever I watch movies, and that's another big reason that horror is my favorite, because at the end of the day, I don't care about how intricate the plot is, or I just want a movie to make me feel something. That is my main thing. Like, move me in some way, whether that's negatively with discomfort or joy or whatever. But that's truly what I crave, and something that I think that I want to take into my filmmaking is just like, I want to imbue feeling more than thought. That sounds really pretentious, but that's the only way I can say it. Once I was getting away from new release reviews, less just like, okay, I'm talking about what other people are making. What am I going to make? I'm all self-taught. I dropped out of college after 2 years. I was originally an art education major. That's really when I was watching a lot of movies. That's what kind of brought out the feeling of wanting to make movies myself. I've done a couple shorts, a couple of micro films here and there. I got in with my buddy Matt Faulkner, who runs Beta Wave, which is a media art collective for recording artists, for music video production. We've shot documentary type stuff for different people. And in 2020, when a lot of music artists weren't able to go and do shows and perform live, they were focusing a lot more on their music videos or doing live performances at home or live in studio performances. It was a really great learning experience to be behind the camera more, work on more editing things, see how production works a little bit more. I got to direct 3 music videos so far. Obviously, a big fan of The Substance. The Substance was so much fun, not only in blending so many different subgenres and different influences, whether it be the body horror, the surrealism, the absurdist comedy to it. I have movies that I'm like, I'm just glad this exists. I don't care if everybody likes it or not. I don't care if they hate it. I just want people to see it, and I'm just happy that something like this is in the world. Beyond being a phenomenal film, in my opinion, is just also one of those miracle type of movies that's just like, wow, she really did that. Or one of my favorite movies is, one that people are kind of split on, is The Neon Demon. If you follow me on Twitter, you probably have seen me tweet about this movie at least once a week. I've done multiple podcast episodes on this movie, and it's a movie that a lot of people hate if it's just not their vibe. It is this very unique kind of horror fairy tale. It brings in some witchy ritual aspects in it, kind of has some cannibalism aspects, which is another subgenre I find very fascinating, but it's very sleek. It's very stylish. The Neon Demon, it's one of my all-time favorite movies. The Lure is a movie that I try to tell everybody to watch. It's a Polish mermaid musical horror movie. J.D. Dillard, he did a Sweetheart, and he was on my radar for his movie Slight. It's not a horror movie, but it is in like that dark alternative superhero genre, which is another corner for me as well. He's got some stuff coming up pretty soon that I'm like, okay, finally, I think this guy's finally get on people's radar. Like, he's done some really good TV work as well. He directed a really great episode of The Outsider. Queer director Carter Smith. A lot of people know his film The Ruins that came out back in 2008. Fantastic eco thriller body horror movie. Killer Plants. Some really gnarly stuff in that movie. Came back around doing the Hulu Into the Dark series. He did a film for that. 2023. He had The Passenger and Swallowed in the same year, and that really got people on his radar. So I'm excited for Carter to, he's already been doing stuff for like, the past 20 years or so, but now he's firmly in people's mind as a genre filmmaker to look out for. Mark Patton is the villain, but it's like 2 homies are like trying to smuggle some drugs. They have to shove it up their booty, and then these drugs were also bugs or something, drug-induced bugs. A lot of hands up assholes in that movie. Really, some really gross fluids and things like that. It's a pretty gnarly movie. Carter Smith, like, he's a ooey gooey boy. As far as like the online horror community, it's just nice to not feel like the weirdo. I have a certain sense of humor, and I'll say certain things and they'll give me a look. Even like my family, like, I mean, they get me, but there was a time I remember my sister texted me one time and she's like, hey, can I ask you something? And I was like, yeah, go ahead. She was like, I saw you tweeting about rituals. Have you like sacrificed anything? And I was like, no, I have not. I'm not doing those kind of rituals, I promise you. Even there's at points where people in real life get worried for you, versus when you talk to other horror people, they understand. We can separate reality from fiction and things like that. I find so much comfort in horror. I've been watching horror movies since I was 7. I'm kind of past the point where many horror movies like actually scare me. I want to feel the discomfort, the disgust, or these things. It makes, the stuff in real life not feel as bad, not as dark, because it's like, hey, yes, our country is on fire right now, all these things. They could also be Satan and be possessing people and turning them into zombies. There is a comfort in horror movies of watching and being like, well, at least, I'm not in this world. So the horror community is so great, and just being able to understand that and having fun with it versus some of the people that judge horror fans and think we're demented killers ourselves and all these things, or think we're going to be influenced by the stuff that we're watching. And it's like, no, we're probably more well adjusted than you guys are, honestly. I find just so much comfort and visibility in the horror community. Movies that I think of some of the most beautiful and creative imagery that from horror movies, and they're not always what comes to mind at first. But then when people ask me why I love the Saw movies so much, I love it because, one, it's a gory soap opera. It's basically the Fast and Furious franchise, but in horror. When I look at John's traps and these things, because in the movies, John's an engineer and he comes up with these, different elaborate traps. There's something about them that is almost sculpturesque. The way that these machines are put together and the way that they work, the visual aesthetic of it, the metal and the chains and things like that. Like, there's something that's like a sculpture about each trap that he makes. There's beauty there to be found. Like the fucking in Saw 3, the angel wings where it fucking rips homegirl's ribs off, but it's in this green light and she's sprawled out, and like it's fucking gorgeous. It's disgusting, but it's gorgeous. The Neon Demon, it's all about beauty and glamour and everything, but then the back end just soaks everything in blood, and it's these models eating eyeballs. That's still hot ass Abby Lee right there on the ground. And that's hot, but she's fucking scooping an eyeball into her mouth. I'm eating the horror and disgust parts, is it's just so fascinating. And Candyman, R.I.P. Tony Todd, is also one of my favorite movies and was something that captured me as a kid. Look how like stylish he is. His voice is so sexy. I don't care about the hook hand. Who gives a shit? The bees? I love bees. He's presented as this, terrifying killer. But at the same time, he's fucking sexy as hell. Finding those lines is just so fun to see. And coming up with the question of like, why is it beautiful in this context? But like, if it was in real life, of course, hell no. Get John's traps away from me in real life. Like, fuck that shit. But thinking of what makes that difference is very fascinating to me. One of my first things I got to do out here in LA was interview Tony Todd at a press junket. Top 5 moments of my life. Like, we got to talk for like 15 minutes. I got to show him my Candyman tattoo. I totally went over time. It was like my press junket and I didn't know how they work. So I got like people on the side trying to get my attention to stop. But then Tony Todd, he's like, no, keep on going. Ask the rest of your questions. He was just so gentle, so sweet. And then we got to chit chat a little bit over on Instagram and stuff. Just such a very sweet guy and a champion for the horror community. Also what he means as being a Black horror icon, what that meant to me as a kid. Between Candyman and Blade, seeing those two characters on screen were like always so powerful for me. One, in Candyman, I've never gotten to see the Black man be the scariest thing in the film, the intimidating presence and all the power. With Blade, it was the other way. Oh, this is the Black man being the most badass person in the movie, the hero. Between those two characters, those meant so much to me, feeling like I belonged. I watched it so young, and specifically because I'm biracial. I'm a mix of many things, actually. Whenever you fill out a form and it asks you and there's a bubble that says other, that's me. I'm other. Growing up, I would move to different neighborhoods, and as a biracial person, you kind of can't win sometimes. I'd get shit in the white neighborhoods, I get shit in the Black neighborhoods. Okay, well, where do I fit? Seeing a character like Blade, like that's his whole thing. That's what makes him the most powerful, is that he has both feet in each world. He has both sides, but he has the best of both worlds. He has all the vampires' powers, but none of their weaknesses. And something about that, like, of being able to be like, okay, yes, I'm going to take the best parts of being a human, being a vampire, and then you fucking get Blade, just the ultimate badass. That made me feel so much better as a kid, of being like, no, being a biracial person is not a negative thing. Like, this is a positive thing. It's what makes me unique. It's what makes me special. It's just always stuck with me. And Wesley Snipes' portrayal and everything. And I mean, I love the whole series in general. It painted my idea of how I feel as a biracial person, but also a biracial person in the horror sphere as well. So in fourth grade, I was reading lots of Goosebumps and things like that, and scary stories to tell in the dark, all these things. I'm reading those stuff, and then that's when I start writing little short stories. I make the characters in the stories just people in my class. And fourth grade, so I'm like 9, but I'm writing these stories where I'm like putting these like gruesome deaths in and things like that. I would read them during recess, and my teacher, shout Mr. Reed, he saw me reading these at recess to some people. And then one week he was like, hey, let's take 15 minutes. Do you want to read it to the whole class? So he let me do that on a weekly basis. Like every week when I'd have a new story, he would take 15 minutes out of the day to let me read it to the class. And again, I'm using my classmates' names and talking about decapitating them. And he didn't go, oh shit, this kid might be crazy. Let me send him to the principal's office, or let me call his parents or anything. He saw that I understood the difference and what it was. And so for him to see that and then take that time out for me, it was so inspirational. So I always say as soon as my debut horror film comes out, Mr. Reed's getting a dedication. Hopefully I can get him at the premiere, because that seriously meant the world to me. You can watch a horror movie that taps into these visceral emotions, and how, the world kind of tells you like, no, don't have emotions, keep them to yourself. And so there is so much catharsis in whenever you watch a movie that hits you in an emotional place that you didn't know that you needed. Whenever you kind of stumble into a movie and you're like, oh, it's this type of movie, and I truly am living that right now. When you don't know where to put these emotions and don't know how to get the catharsis, horror movies can be that. Not everybody has a hobby that's physical to get their stress and anger out or things like that. Sometimes a horror movie can do that for you. The first time that I watched Excision, which is another very surreal body horror, very bloody but gorgeous but also gross. People always have their movies where they're like, oh, this character, that's me, I see myself in it. I didn't really have too many of those characters. I watched Excision and I was bawling at the end of the movie. I was just like, oh my God, Pauline, that is me. Like, I want to save her. I want to be her best friend. I want to guide her, and all these things. I saw so much of myself in that, and I was not expecting it when I watched that movie. Nobody told me how much of a fucking like bleak coming of age movie it is about somebody that has neurodivergence that they don't know what to do with, that nobody is helping them figure out. I did not know that I need to meet Pauline in that moment. I feel like that is, again, why people come to horror for these emotional responses. Horror can be unpredictable, and you don't exactly know what you're getting when you go in. Sometimes you think you're going in for the thrills and the kills, and then you come out and being like, oh damn, I need to call my mom. Themes of relationship with your parents and that, wow, that caught me off guard. So it's like, you never know how it's going to hit you. And I just watch a horror movie and I want it to press as many of those buttons as possible.